Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. The topic of today's class is defining sustainability for renewable resources. First, let me give you the brief outline of today's presentation. So first we're going to revisit the idea of development. That will be followed by a discussion on how renewable resources are contributing in economic development, and that will be followed by a discussion on the current usage pattern of various types of renewable resources. After that, we're going to focus on how sustainably we can use these renewable resources, and at the end, we're going to end this lecture with a couple of way forwards. So these are the following learning outcomes. So once you are done with this lecture, you will have a fair amount of idea of what is economic development, how renewable resources playing an important role in economic development, and what are the various ways we can achieve the sustainability in case of these renewable resources. So briefly, as I have said, that we have to recapitulate a little bit of what is economic development. So before conceptualizing what is economic development, let us just focus on what do you understand by economy. So economy is basically a part of society, and society is part of this larger biosphere and physical environment. And as we all know that we are constantly interacting with the environment, we are dependent upon environment in various ways. We take a lot of resources from environment, right? In case of this economy, the central stage takes by the production. So production is the central stage of any kind of economy. So think about any kind of production. So there are a lot of various kinds of factors of production which we generally needed for production. One of the very important factors of production is land or water or various types of energies, right? So what are the various ways we can conceptualize this development? So there are two ways. One is traditional income approach, another is non-income approach, right? Which is not traditional. So income approach only focuses on GDP and per capita GDP. On the other hand, non-income approach focuses on reduction in poverty, reduction in inequality, unemployment, and definitely literacy rate, human development indicators, etc. So we all have discussed about this in the previous lecture, so I'm not going into greater detail here. In case of policy measures, also we have seen around 2000 there were millennium development goals were taken by all the countries, where the main focus was on eradicating absolute level of poverty, right? However, that focus has shifted to a sustainable development goals in and around 2017, where we have already seen that environmental concern has taken a center stage. There are a lot of goals which are directly concerning with environment. Now, at this juncture, I would like to pose this following question. What do you think? How renewable resources are contributing in economic development? We have fair amount of idea of how environment and economic development are interlinked, but here the question is a bit deeper. How renewable resources are contributing in economic development? Okay, to answer this question that how renewable resources are actually contributing in development, let us first understand what is this renewable resources. So all the natural resources can be divided into two categories. One is renewable resources, another is non-renewable resources. Okay, so first let us focus on non-renewable resources. The term itself suggests that this type of resources, the amount is finite. It does not regenerate it over time. Okay, what are the example of this kind of non-renewable resources? These are fossil fuel, coal, etc. Our lecture focuses on renewable resources. That name itself suggests it regenerates over time, so it does not get over time, right? What are the renewable resources? Air, water, forest, etc. Yes, so what is the definition of renewable resources? So this type of resources do generate over time through natural processes and biological processes. Unlike non-renewable resources. So non-renewable resources are finite in nature, but this renewable resources, it's not finite in nature. So what are the various types of these renewable resources? These are forest, fisheries, biodiversity, air, water, etc. Now let us focus on how these various types of renewable resources are actually contributing in economic development. First, let us take as the example of forest. So forest covers actually 31% of world's land area. Forest does air purification, soil stabilization, flood prevention, and climate regulation. So not only that, forest also creates job and wealth. So the formal timber sector contributes $600 billion to the global economy. That is about 1% of total GDP. And in terms of job, forest actually provides 54.2 million jobs. The timber sector employs 13.2 million people formally and another 41 million people informally. So as you can see, forest also gives us employment, generate income and wealth, and it also gives us lot other various types of environmental protection. So it is very important natural resources or renewable resources. Now let us come to fisheries. Fisheries, yes, definitely it's a kind of a food source, right? We eat fish, but it also provides a lot of employment. So this particular table, it provides a world employment for fishers and fish farmers by region. So I would just like you to focus on this column called total. This is the total fisheries employment in 1995. It's 29.5 million. It was 29.5 million people were employed in 1995, which actually increased to 37.8 million in 2020. So a lot of people are actually employed in this sector, right? Interestingly, you can see that Asia is that continent where actually a lot of people are employed in fisheries compared to the other continent, compared to Africa, America, etc. And obviously the employment has also increased in case of Asia. So fisheries actually provide us with a lot of employment. So if a sector is generating employment, we know that by the idea of the development, we know like it is very playing an important part in development, right? Now, let us talk about water. We know water is very important resources because we all drink water, right? It is very important. Other than that, water is also central of any economic production. Economic growth is actually thirsty business, right? Other than that, you go for agriculture, you go for fisheries, you go for irrigation, you need water, okay? Now, what about soil? Soil is, we know soil is also again important, but how important it is. So this is the graph of the world population. What we are observing, over the years, the global population is not declining, it is increasing, right? So if the population is increasing, what do we need? We need food grains. We have to produce food, right? And for production of food, we have to depend upon agriculture. And agriculture, where does it take place? It takes place on soil, it takes place on land. So soil plays a very crucial role in providing food to this rising world population. This graph is also showing that over the years, population has increased, and along with that, food grain production has increased more than the population, right? So it shows that it plays a crucial role. Again, another important point is that land is finite. So if your population is increasing, so your demand for your food grain production will also be high. In that case, you need to produce more and more. And for that, you use certain kind of fertilizers to increase the yield from your land, right? So what is happening? You are directly using this kind of fertilizers to your land so that you get more crops out of it or more yield out of it to feed your rising number of population, right? So this graph is particularly showing that especially Asia's curve is quite interesting. It is showing that nitrogen fertilizer use per hectare of cropland is increasing for Asia, and I have also put India in this context. As you can see, India's fertilizer usage is quite high compared to the other continent, okay? Now, as a food grain production, soil plays an important role. Not only that, it has also connection with employment. Think about agriculture. Agriculture provides lot of employment, especially in developing countries. On the left hand panel of this particular slide, I have presented data on of Japan, United States, South Korea. These are mostly developed economies. You can see the trend of employment in agriculture is declining, okay? But the point is, still there are a lot of people, around more than 2 million people are associated with agriculture in the developed economy. Focus on the right-hand panel of this particular slide. Here I have presented data of the Indian economy. Again, overall employment in agriculture had gone down as expected since we have been in a developing stage. But the point is, still more than 200 million people are associated with agriculture. They're employed in agriculture. So again, this soil, land, it is a source of employment, source of food grain production. So this is very important as a natural resources or renewable natural resources, right? So how it is contributing to development? It is providing the various kinds of natural renewable resources. They are contributing in terms of employment, in terms of our food grain, in terms of our health. So if we are following the definition of development, it is generating income, it is giving us employment, also it is giving us good health, right? So these are very important. Now the question is, fine, renewable resources, we know that it does not get over. It is going to be there. It will get generated through natural processes. But the point is, what are the current usage pattern of this kind of renewable resources? Do you have to be worried about it? Just think about it. Okay, in the next couple of slides, I'm going to show you how these renewable natural resources are being used in this current period. The first, let us focus on this deforestation. The graph is showing, actually, it is because of the rising population and because of expansion of the agricultural land, world natural or the forest cover has actually gone down. So in 2018, you can see that 46% of the land comes under agriculture, which used to be 57% 10,000 years ago. So as you can see, as the world progressed, as the economic development had happened, population had increased, so we had to expand our agriculture. So that is one major sources of deforestation to meet the need of the rising population of this world. These are the couple of countries where this deforestation is being continuing for the past 30 years. Okay, Brazil, where it used to be 75%, now it had gone down. Not only Brazil, Indonesia, Zambia, Laos, Cambodia, in all these countries, the deforestation is going on at a fastest rate in the the past 30 years. Now, let us focus on water. Water, we have seen how important is water even for our life and for the production process as well. The right-hand panel of this particular slide is showing, it's a news clipping, it's showing this Europe's river run dry as scientists warn drought could be worst in 500 years. Here I'm just going to show you a small video clipping which would give you the idea that how it has actually gone down. So as you can see in this small video clippings, it's just mostly focusing on the various countries in Europe. And within the 4 years of span period, it is showing that river is getting dried, and it is not a good news for us. Well, it is not good news for us Indian as well. The recent Composite Water Management Index published by Niti Aayog in June 2018 mentioned that India was undergoing the worst water crisis in its history, that nearly 600 million people were facing high to extreme water stress, and about 200,000 people were dying every year due to inadequate access to safe water. Okay, so in Europe, where mostly the developed countries are located, there is a water crisis. Their rivers are running dry. In India, it's a developing nation. Here also we are observing water crisis. So even if the renewable resources, which we know that they are going to be regenerated through natural processes, but still, what is happening? What is wrong with us? Or wrong with the renewable resources? Is something wrong with the economic development or the way we are thinking economic development? Here, let us focus on this graph called air pollution. As you can see, air pollution is one of the biggest source of death. There are various studies which have confirmed this trend that death from all sources of air pollution comes around 8.8 million. Okay, so again, the air we are breathing, we are not safe. That's what this present data trends are showing. Now the question is something wrong? Water is getting over. There is a severe water crisis in the parts of developed country. In developing country, air which we are breathing is not good for our health. People are dying. Forest cover is going down. What is happening with our renewable resources? If they can regenerate it by themselves, then what is happening? Are we doing, we in the sense, are the human being, are we exploiting them more and more? Are we doing something wrong with the processes? So do we have to think about some other alternative way of development? So I would urge you to think, and I would urge you to take a pause and think about it, and we'll get back. Yes, so we have already seen that the current usage pattern of renewable resources are not sustainable. Something is wrong with the way we are using our renewable resources. So it is in this context I am going to introduce the concept called sustainability. We have already discussed what is sustainable development. Here, now I am going to discuss about what is sustainability. So a lifestyle, a way of doing things is sustainable if most of the world's population could continue it for a long time without major adverse consequences. But just try to recall at this point the lifestyle we are leading right now, the way we are organizing our production right now. Already there is a water crisis. What will happen to the next generation? What will happen to next generation? If the water crisis is so severe that we can't even, we are not sure that whether we can sustain our life, then what will happen to the future generation? So in this way, sustainability is a kind of a concept where we have to think that should we use at the present or should we keep it for the future? So it's a kind of an intertemporal choice. And it is also about whether we are saving it or whether we have to invest on it. So it's also kind of a problem of saving and investment. In case of renewable natural resources, it would be only sustainable if the rate we are using those renewable resources needs to be less than the natural rate of regeneration. Okay? If you are exploiting renewable natural resources at a fastest rate of their natural rate of regeneration, obviously it will get over. For instance, take the example of fisheries. There are various kinds of fish or the various types of fish which are no more there, which become extinct, right? Even if it's renewable natural resources. So usage pattern needs to be, or usage rate needs to be less than the natural rate of regeneration to maintain sustainability. I have used the example of fish, and I have tried to illustrate with that example that how harvesting of renewable resources can be efficient. Focus on this diagram. So on the y-axis, we have measured growth rate of fisheries, that is del X. On the x-axis, we have measured the stock of fishes. Okay. XC denotes the critical level below which the species might become extinct. So if you're harvesting at a very higher rate, then the fish might, that particular type or particular variety, might get extinct altogether. So above XC on this diagram, the growth increases, but below XC it declines because definitely competition for food suppliers or the effect of the predators. Okay. Now, what is the economist perspective? What is the objective here? The objective is to maximize the social value of the stock over time, right? In this model, the assumption is harvesting is costless. And how does the social gain get calculated here? The social gain is examined in connection with reducing the harvesting of fish and allowing the present stock to increase by 1 unit. Okay. So now I'm going to define a couple of terms. First, V. What is V? The present marginal social value of consuming 1 unit of fish. F prime S. Just focus on this diagram. It was Fx. So F prime X change in growth from increasing the stock by 1 unit. So if we multiply V into F prime X, we are getting the social value of the gain. Okay. What is this marginal social value of an additional unit of fish in the second period? So here again we are considering another period. We're thinking in terms of a sustainable way. So V plus del V. What is this del V? So it is the change in the social value between first and second period. Now we have to calculate the present value of an additional unit of stock in the next period. The following equation is actually representing that. That is nothing but V into F prime X plus V plus del V divided by 1 plus R. Here R is the discount rate. Now how can we achieve the social welfare? To achieve the social welfare, the following conditions needs to be fulfilled. What is the following condition? That is F prime X plus del V by V has to be greater than R. So how can we interpret this particular condition? It says if the marginal productivity of the stock plus the proportionate gain in the value of the stock over time exceeds the discount rate, then it would be efficient if we reduce the harvesting. Okay, so that is how, from an idea or from the perspective of economist, we can achieve an efficient level of harvesting. Now, towards the end of this lecture, as I have promised, that I am going to discuss that how do we reach sustainability for this particular renewable resources. As we have seen, renewable resources are very important in case of development, but we also need to take care of them because it is the current uses pattern are not at all sustainable. So, first of all, we need to consider the impact of industrialized agriculture, right? Our model, our present development model focuses on to maximize the profit at a shorter period of time. But if I have to think in terms of a sustainable usage of our soil or of our forest, we need to think what is the impact of this profit maximization in terms of, let's say, soil health, soil quality, ecosystem, water quality, etc. For that, we need to design policies, or we need to at least first recognize them that these are all getting affected. We need to preserve them in some way, or maybe we need to change our farming technique. So a lot of you must have come across this organic farming, right? So instead of putting lot of fertilizers, is there any other way that we can sustain the agriculture so that our future generation can get some benefit out of it? Second one is this fishery. So we need to put some restriction on harvesting level, or the earlier model is showing that we need to put some restriction. If the discount rate is quite, that particular condition which I discussed, if that holds, then we need to cut back from the harvesting. For instance, here I would like to give an example of Hilsha fish, which is actually the Bangladesh government, they have come up with some restriction that there is a period in a year you can't catch the Hilsha fish, and if their weight is below 500 grams, you can't catch them. So that's how the stock of Hilsha fish is being maintained in Bangladesh. So maybe we have to come up with some kind of policies at various at country level or various local level. Other than that, we also have to use of recyclable or biodegradable materials for our productions. So we can, limit our pollution. We can limit the waste emissions. Okay, and lastly, we need to transit from fossil fuels to renewable energy. So there has to be some energy policy regarding that. There has to be some policies required for this kind of transition towards renewable energy conservation. So that is the need of the hour. So what are the take-home points in this lecture? So we started with the idea of economic development. We have seen there are broadly two approaches. It was income approach and non-income approach. Then we have discussed about how renewable resources are actually playing a very important role in development. And we have also witnessed the current usage pattern of the renewable resources are not at all sustainable. There are a lot of crises already started taking place. Water crisis, high level of air pollution, deforestation. This has already taken place in our lifetime itself. So in that context, we have got an idea about sustainability, right? So the usage need to be in a way that it has to be less than their natural regeneration process. Along with it, we also have to think in terms of various kinds of policies. So we have to do some kind of investment to preserve the environment, and that I feel it's the need of the hour to save us and to save our future generation. Thank you.